On today's show, I don't care what time of year it is, it's always good to beat the Toronto Maple Leafs. Last night, the Sens opened up the preseason with a 6-5 victory that was punctuated by a Carter Yakemchuk game winner.
And before the weekend, the Sens had great news announcing they've reached an agreement with the NCC to build an arena at LeBreton Flats.
All that and our organizational value rankings on a busy Monday. This is Locked On Sens.
I'm Jake Sanderson.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
You're Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome! You are locked on to the Ottawa Senators, the only daily podcast covering the Sens. On the outskirts of enemy territory, I'm Ross Levitan, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. You can also follow the show on social media. We're at Sens Central on Twitter, LockedOn.Senators on Instagram. You can find us everywhere you get podcasts, free and available on YouTube, where a like, comment, subscription go a long way to helping the show grow. Today is Monday, September 23rd, and Pilsy, I'm sorry I was late for the show today. I was up all night yakking.
Yeah, that'll happen. I mean, that was an incredible way to end that game. Back and forth game with the Sens, high scoring. Hope people had the over on that, and Sens money line.
Plus 285.
But that was preseason hockey is so weird. Like, you have the Toronto Maple Leafs that put all their star players on to I'm assuming they're hoping to wow the crowd in Toronto up against their division rivals, the Battle of Ontario, hoping to get a good start. And they were able to throw some punches, literally and figuratively. They were able to stay in the game with the Sens, but the Sens only had a handful of their NHL guys, but it wasn't really those guys that popped off, Ross. It was the guys fighting for fourth line jobs, which is kind of what you want in the preseason. You want the guys fighting for jobs to really show what they can do. Jenik, he looked absolutely amazing. Cole Reinhardt was looking good. Donovan Sabrango almost gets the Gordie Howe hat trick. Who am I missing here? Halliday had a couple sneaky assists. And then, of course, Carter Yakemchuk, the star of the show, with an unbelievable end-to-end goal, 3-on-3 overtime with Austin Matthews, Jake McCabe, Mitch Marner, and Matt Murray as the Leafs group on the ice. And he makes all four of them look silly. But Ross, you know what? There's a couple things I like the most about that Yakemchuk goal. First off, Austin Matthews' first game as Leafs captain. And look back at that highlight. It is hilarious watching Yakemchuk go around him. And then what does Matthews do? He points at McCabe. You get him. My controller died. I'm not going to skate anymore. You get him. I'm the captain. I'm going to micromanage and tell people where to go while I just float around. Okay, cool. Yakemchuk gets around him. McCabe says, captain says, I got to get him. He goes for him. Yakemchuk did a little whoop, whoop. And then Mitch Marner, my favorite, Mitch Marner.
Leaf for life.
With a lazy poke check, thinking, this kid, he's only 18. How fast can he be? How good can his dangles be? I'll just lazily poke away at him. Can't get him. Matt Murray. Yes, Matt Murray. He's like, all right, I'm going to stop it. I'm going to save the Leafs here. Stop my old team. No, even though it wasn't high glove, Ross, Yakemchuk's still able to beat him with that backhanded deke. And I love that picture you found of the side view. Even the ref is like, ooh. And that goes to show, I was looking back at Carter Yakemchuk prospect analysis before or after the game, Ross. Our friend David St. Louis from Elite Prospects, the title of his film room article, Carter Yakemchuk dangles everyone. Get used to that, Toronto Maple Leafs fans. What a goal. Woo!
And he did. That gives Ottawa a 6-5 overtime win. The Senators came out like gangbusters, out shooting the Leafs 15-2 in the first period. The Leafs flipped the script in the third period, out shooting Ottawa 24-5. They tie it in the last minute after a timeout, which I thought was a bit funny in a preseason game, with 40 seconds left in the game. William Nylander scores. So look, the Leafs offense all came from their top guys. Matthews had one, Pacioretty, who's on a PTO, but obviously a veteran, has had two, and Matthew Nye scored as well. But that overtime goal is all people will remember in Ottawa about that game. 2-minute and 30-second shift to start overtime. Maybe not what you want when you have offensive control the entire time. Not sure why the Leafs didn't make a change there. Had some great tweets last night. Someone said that Craig Berube told the Leafs play every game like it's game 7. You saw what Ottawa did, just kind of chipping away offensively. I like the depth guys. I thought Jenik, you mentioned him being kind of the guy. 4 points, 1 goal, 3 assists in that game. Huge. Cole Reinhardt, 2 goals, 2 assists. And the thing about Cole Reinhardt is he was just all around the net, and that's where he needs to be. We know he has the speed in transition, but he needs to be able to finish around the net. And even it's going to be in Belleville, but it's like that's going to be a huge asset to them down there if he can take the next step as he's scheduled, should he play the whole season, to be the all-time leader in games played passing Igor. So all in all, these depth guys played well for Ottawa. People are going to be talking about Yakemchuk, rightfully so. How much did this impact your thoughts on him? Not only the goal. I thought he was fantastic all night long. He played almost the most in the entire game, Pilsy. They're not showing up the time on ice stats here on NHL.com preseason, but I think the score had it. He was over 23 minutes last night.
Wow, I didn't realize it was that much. And he was partnered with Thomas Chabot. I thought this was a poor showing from Thomas Chabot, unfortunately, but Yakemchuk looked pretty good out there. Now, I think we've talked about... Oh, go ahead.
I've got it here. Yakemchuk, 23:02. Only Thomas Chabot, who... Okay. Why is Thomas Chabot playing 26:30 in a preseason game?
Yeah, we can't have that. We talked about how now that Sanderson and Zub are going to be top guys, it's going to bump him down. Obviously, Sanderson and Zub don't play, so he's the top pairing defenseman. But that's still too much time for Thomas Chabot, especially when it was kind of iffy if he was totally healthy or not. So that Travis Green's gotta change that. But I mean, ended up.
Well, Sabrango's penalty or fight, obviously, he's in the box for 5 minutes. That's going to probably add a shift or two to him as well. But yeah, we don't need Chabot playing 26:30 in preseason.
Yeah, no, definitely not. And speaking of Sabrango, how about that goal? He got barred down. It was absolutely beautiful. But let's stick on Yakemchuk here, the star topic of discussion for this game. Look, I think when you see a goal like that happen by a prospect in preseason, first you're like, it's preseason. Who was on the ice? Well, we just mentioned it. It wasn't like that was a tandem of scrubs on the ice for the Leafs.
Well, just to give people a little bit of perspective, last night's roster per Sportsnet, the Ottawa Senators' entire roster had 62 NHL goals last year. Austin Matthews had 69.
Yeah, that's insane. And then if you look at the salaries of the two teams stacked up against each other, that makes it even more hilarious. But the discussion is, all right, Carter Yakemchuk had a great showing, scores an amazing overtime goal, highlight reel goal. I think a lot of Sens fans are like, this guy's ready. Let's have him playing in the NHL, top pair, put him with Chabot or Sanderson. He's ready. Let's go. Me personally, Ross, I was impressed by Yakemchuk, but I'm still of the mind that it wouldn't hurt him to go back to junior to work on a couple more things, which ironically, I think my note for Yakemchuk in the preseason was don't be doing those crazy dangles because it's not going to work against NHL players. Now, I should have prefaced it's not going to work up against competent defensive NHL players, Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, Matt Murray, do not fall in that category. But I still think there's no reason to rush him. You've got lots of depth on D. Now, how good is that depth? We'll find out. But I just don't think this is a situation where Carter Yakemchuk should be rushed to the NHL. Can you give him a couple games? Sure. Maybe give him the 9-game sample, see how it goes. But personally, I think it would be best if he goes back to junior, continues to develop, and then he's ready to go next year. Like I was thinking that Yakemchuk might be a guy that goes to junior, then spends a year in the AHL, and then comes to the NHL. I don't think he's going to have to do that AHL year if he has a big year in junior and can work on a couple things like the skating. Even though he blows by all those Leafs players, most of them controllers died and they're poking, hoping to get a piece of him. So it wasn't really the speed that got him that goal. It was more the dangles, hockey IQ, and lack of effort from Leafs players. But I still think it would be good for him to go back to junior. How do you feel about Yakemchuk here?
I think he just earned himself another game. I was of the mind that he just plays one game and then goes back. Look, you get to go into Toronto. It's obviously one of the meccas of hockey, and you get to get that experience, and then let's go. Because the WHL season, I saw the Brandon Wheat Kings had their home opener last weekend. Like, he's now losing out on certain reps at the WHL level. But after that performance, now I want to see him again. And that's all you can ask for of an 18-year-old kid at camp is make it hard on us to send you down. Senators with 2 games at home, Tuesday, Thursday. Like, I'm at least keeping him until Thursday. Give him another week with the strength and conditioning, another week with the group, maybe a full week with Thomas Chabot, again, learning from him, the habits, everything in practice. And then maybe by the weekend, you send him back down. He can rejoin his team for next Monday and then go from there. But of course, this is all to be decided. I don't think it should be preemptive decision where, okay, let's get him back. Let's play it by ear because, again, it was the goal that wowed. That's what's going to be on the highlight reel. But his decision-making was so smart, and that's what was concerning to me because at the rookie tournament, there was a little bit of confusion at times, but you look at playing with good players, NHLers, the structure's all better. Now, all of a sudden, he's fitting in, and the speed doesn't seem as detrimental because he's not trying to skate through everyone until he had to in overtime. Great performance for Carter Yakemchuk. He is our Sens Central standout. There's no surprise about that. Let us know in the comments what you think the Senators should do with Carter Yakemchuk. On the other side, who else stood out? Who raised their stock last night? And did anybody take a step back? We'll discuss that. We'll get into the arena news and our organizational value rankings. Hockey is so back, and so are we. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by a new sponsor. New sponsor alert.
Woo!
Okay, that's the new sponsor noise.
I just want to say, too, it's so appropriate. Yakemchuk scored that goal on Sunday because you nailed it with the Chris Berman. That was a little whoop, whoop, whoop. That was awesome going through all that. But yes, new sponsor alert. It's Prize Picks.
Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. All you got to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Ross, you're going to love this one. 1 Caleb Williams passing yard gets you 1 win on Prize Picks every week in September. That's right. Only 1 yard gets you an automatic win every football weekend in September. 4 weeks of free W's. Don't miss this deal on Prize Picks because it's gone when September ends. Coming up soon here. You can now win 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy, so your lineup stays in play even if one of your players gets injured. Prize Picks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When your picks hit, you can get your money in as quick as 15 minutes. Download the Prize Pick app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNHL on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game.
Today's episode is also brought to you by Indeed. We're driven by the search for better. And when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors. That's according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. You can use Indeed to schedule, screen, and message. You can connect with candidates faster. And it's not just faster. 93% of employers agree that Indeed gets the highest quality matches compared to other job sites. They're leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day. Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Listeners of this show are entitled to a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on Locked On Senators. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. All right, Pilsy. I want to give a little love to Elliot Friedman of Sportsnet, who yesterday guaranteed that the Ottawa Senators are making playoffs. Pilsy, your thoughts?
I love that. Yeah, that meme of him holding up the paper Sens playoffs. Love that. Elliot Friedman, that guy knows what he's talking about.
He certainly does. Our guy Johnny Lazarus says that he walked so Friedge could run. He, of course, said he bet his life last year that the Senators would make the playoffs. I reminded him you only lose when you get up from the table, so hopefully he doubles down on that. I'm feeling good. I said it on Thursday or our Thursday show. It's playoffs, and I'm not going to be fooled by preseason. Last year, I may have tweeted after Eunice Korpisalo shut out Pittsburgh and Halifax. I might have tweeted saying that the Sens goaltending is giving me a lot of confidence. So I'm going to hold off with any individual predictions like that, especially when it comes to NHLers, because we know Pinto, Batherson, neither of them impressed last night. Let's just call a spade a spade. Thomas Chabot didn't impress, but we're not. That's as much as we're going to talk about it, other than Chabot should not be playing 26 minutes and 30 seconds in any preseason game. But it's the bubble players. That's who you're watching. And for them, this may as well be a Stanley Cup playoff game because some of them only have a short sample to impress. And Jenik is one of those guys. He needs waivers, Pilsy. He's 24 years old. And if the Senators don't think that he should be on the opening night roster, any team can have him. Well, how about his first impression? Is he now the favorite to be the Senators' fourth line center out of training camp?
I think so. I mean, we're one game into the preseason, so there's lots of chances for other players to impress and have their moments. And maybe Jenik can't keep this up and it fizzles off a little later on. I don't know. But from that performance, he looked great. Like, that goal was great. He had a couple good assists. Like, I mean, anytime you get 4 points in one game, that's absolutely sick. So you know that he's going to have a chance. And Ross, probably, I would say his biggest competition for fourth line center, Noah Gregor, he did not help his stock last night. I thought it was a poor performance from Noah Gregor, especially like that's a guy coming from the Leafs. You'd hope he'd be juiced up playing up against the Leafs in Toronto. His old team didn't really help him much. So I would definitely say Jenik has the inside edge here, and that's a Steve Stais guy. So I think he's gonna put him in a place to at least have a chance to succeed.
3 shots, 2 hits, 2 blocks, and only played 13:48 to go along with a goal and 3 assists. A great performance by Jenik, and another guy who now, next time we see him, I want him playing with different players who could potentially be his line mates at the NHL level. With all due respect to Cole Reinhardt and Xavier Bourgault, I don't necessarily think that's going to be an NHL line. So let's see him with a McEwen, who, by the way, also stood out last night. I thought he was banging bodies. I thought he was good in the offensive zone. The assist that he had, or a great play to set up, that would be great. If Zach McEwen, we know he's got that ODR skill, but can he translate that into a consistent package of being a positive impact player beyond the physicality at the NHL level? That would be great for the depth of this team. So there were certain guys who made huge impacts like that. And I'm excited to see what's next this week with the Ottawa Senators having 2 games at home, including tomorrow against the Toronto Maple Leafs and then on Thursday against the Buffalo Sabres. A reminder that every game day at the GLEBE Central Pub, you'll get 10% off by letting your server know that you listen to Locked On Senators. An unreal deal. It's so good, and it's also for preseason games. We are going to be at the GLEBE Central Pub for the home opener, I don't know, mid-afternoon, let's say. and we're going to take the shuttle. So get your tickets to the shuttle. Just wanted to get that in here. We haven't even gotten to the ads, Pillsy. I just want everyone to get fired up because the home opener is only 17 days away. So get your tickets for the shuttle. Come party with us before the game. Round trip, $17. GLEBECentralPub.com. It's got it all covered. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm already talking about the home opener, Pillsy. These players, they got a lot of work to do before then. But today, a very well-earned complete day off for the team.
Yeah, I think so. And they got the Leafs again tomorrow, so we'll see how that goes. We'll see how the lineups will change here. But yeah, I thought it was really impressive showing from guys that have to battle. I know maybe Cole Reinhardt is not a guy that's in the top spots for fighting for a fourth line job, but if you're looking for a guy that can play fourth line role, he's got the perfect kind of profile for that. He forechecks hard. He plays a gritty game. Is he going to put up a lot of points offensively? No, but he just showed last night 2 goals, 2 assists. Again, 4 points, same as Jenik. So that's someone I moved up a little in my rankings of guys that could be fighting for a fourth line job because, you know, as you talked about, he spent a lot of time in Belleville. He's put his work in the AHL. So do I think he's going to get a long shot? Or a long look at an NHL job? Probably not. But if there's injuries, I wouldn't mind seeing Cole Reinhardt come up for a couple games.
We've talked about how disappointing it must have been the one game that he did play in the NHL. He's in the box when the game winner goes in. So it would be a great arc to see him get back into the mix. We'll see who's in the lineup on Tuesday. The Senators will be back on the practice ice. If you missed it last week, Chris Phillips joined Locked On Senators. Great conversation with him, you know. And we also found out why he decided to go the business route rather than hockey operations, but he couldn't spill the beans. We interviewed him Thursday afternoon. Then Friday morning, the Senators with a huge business announcement taking the next step forward at LeBreton Flats. The NCC, the Senators agreeing to terms. They've bridged the gap. No pun intended, but it'd be great to get the Gatineau community right across from where they're planning to build at LeBreton Flats. It won't be a lease. Now it'll be a full-on sale. It went from under 7 acres to now 10 acres. So it's all good news. And this owner, Michael Andlauer, gives me a ton of confidence that it will get done. But Pillsy, I went and I watched that Illuminate LeBreton video from Rendezvous LeBreton. That was like 6 or 7 years ago. I've been hurt so many times. I will be genuinely so excited for the city, the country, really. It's the most underdeveloped prime real estate in our country, and we'll reimagine the Ottawa downtown. But I'll be excited when there's a shovel in the ground.
Yeah, Ross, I'll drive to Ottawa and I'll bring a shovel and I'll help out if need be.
Before the home opener, we're taking a picture in front of this pile of dirt that's all fenced off. And we're saying we're here to put a shovel in the ground. Let's get this thing rolling.
All right, I'll bring the shovel.
All right, 2, please.
2, yeah, fair. I don't know if I have 2 shovels, to be honest. But the thing, like this, Ross, I mentioned to you, this is a big thing, but it's also kind of not really anything because and Cyril Leader mentioned look, we're not months away from starting building. We're years away. This is great news, but let's not everybody get so excited and
don't sell your house because you think you're moving into the condos that are going to be there next week.
Yeah, exactly. But it's good, Ross, because I think from the sounds of it, the NCC was really trying to make this work their way, and they kind of expected the Sens to just agree, like you talked about, only 6 acres of land to build an arena. I don't think would have really worked, and
leasing the land.
Yeah, and then I saw somewhere that they were saying that they wanted it to be a 0 emissions building and all this stuff, and it's it's pretty difficult to do, and it just seemed like they had this grand vision that just wasn't realistic, and the Sens were able to be let's do something realistic here, let's actually make this happen, and they were able to come to terms here. So it's great news that a deal has been done, but we're a long way away from drinking a couple Molsons and yelling "Go Sens Go" at LeBreton Flats. Well, no, that's not true, actually, Ross. Maybe we'll bring a couple beers and we'll yell "Go Sens Go" at the job site. And then there's the environmental aspect of it. There's a lot of environmental cleanup that needs to be done. So all I'm saying is great news, but a lot of work. It's a fixer-upper here. You got a fixer-upper on your hands, which is fun, but it takes time to see the vision and to finally move in and feel good about it.
We're looking forward to Gavin Giroux and Ryder Kachuk snapping it around at LeBreton Flats in the National Hockey League. Great news for the city. All right, time to continue our organizational value rankings. Oh my goodness. We have made it to the NHLer portion. We have made it to 30. We're going to do 29 through 24 on today's show, and we are inching closer. And by the way, coming up the Sunday before the regular season, I'm taking all these segments, making one extremely long video. We're going to premiere it. It'll almost be just a live chat hangout throughout the day so Sens fans can share their excitement with the new season coming. Is it going to boom or bust? I think it's a fun idea. We will see. That's all coming up. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by the GLEBE Central Pub. Shout out the GLEBE Central Pub. Oh my goodness, we have news for you. The GLEBE Central Pub, not only are they back for season 3 with the show, the postcast is back for season 3, but also we now have a phenomenal deal with the GLEBE Central Pub. If you head to the GLEBE Central Pub website, you'll be able to see it for yourself. The best deal in town, dare I say. I mean, this is unbelievable. If you come into the pub and take a selfie with our Locked On GCP jersey, post the pic on your social media, and follow and tag GLEBE Central Pub and Locked On Sens, you'll get 2 20-ounce pints for $7.79 total, not each.
In this economy?
Unbelievable. And the other promo on Sens game days, home and away, tell your server that Locked On Senators sent you, and they'll take 10% off the bill. So we're getting a great deal for you. And now the GLEBE Central Pub will be able to see just how many Sens Central citizens we are sending to the pub. So really appreciate the GLEBE Central Pub. Blair, they all do such a great job there. And we cannot wait to get boots on the ground inside the pub on October 10th. Let's say 2 p.m. We'll be there at 2 p.m. We'll be there at 2 p.m. on game day, Thursday. And guess what? It's a Sens game day. So come get 10% off and enjoy, and then take the shuttle to the CTC. The GLEBE Central Pub. The vibes are free, and now you get 10% off on Senators game day. Just mention you listen to Locked On Senators. The GCP. Oh, yeah, where is it? 779 Bank Street, right in the heart of the Glebe.
This episode is also brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Ross, it's Monday Night Football with 2 games tonight. My Cincinnati Bengals are going to get their first win of the season up against the Washington Commanders. They're a 7.5-point favorite, -360 on the money line. And the Buffalo Bills up against the Jacksonville Jaguars, hoping to stay perfect on the season. They're at a -5.5 spread with a -250 on the money line. So go check that out today, guys, on FanDuel.com.
All right, Pillsy, we made it to the third segment, a packed show, and just thinking back to last night's 6-5 overtime win against the Toronto Maple Leafs, the last guy I want to talk about briefly before we get to our OVRs. And by the way, Yakemchuk, we talked about the goal. You know, he tied Drake Batherson for the team lead in shots on goal. Yakemchuk had 5 shots on goal in last night's game. Awesome performance from him. Goalie-friendly show. Matt Sogard, he took a lot of rubber in the third period. 24 shots in the period. I would have liked one more save, though. The fourth one was a bit of a squeaker, and I know that it's the better players on Toronto that are scoring. I get all that. And I also understand that it's tough when you only, you're basically by yourself the whole first period. Only 2 shots against. But one more save would have been great.
Yeah, the second Pacioretty goal, I think that's a tough one, especially, Ross. You know it's not a good goal when the player doesn't even think he scored. Pacioretty shoots that puck and keeps kind of skating and doesn't react. His teammates are celebrating. He's like, oh, cool, I got one. Sweet. But yeah, definitely probably not the showing Mad Sogard wanted, but hey, you still get the win, so you love that.
Certainly do. So we'll look for the goaltending later on. Linus Ullmark, a couple maintenance days. Are you worried about that?
No. As I've said with the Shabbat Norris injuries, I'm blindly optimistic, so nope, not worried.
One other note, very cool inter-squad game in Gatineau on Saturday. I thought that was a really cool thing for the Senators to do, opening the doors to the other community. By the way, Slush Puppy Center looks phenomenal. We need to get to a game there. That looks sick. Not only that, but shout out to the Sens socials team for doing a YouTube live stream of it. We got to watch that no matter if you could make it or not. So really cool. And hopefully the Senators can build that bridge over to Quebec a little bit more sturdy as time goes on. All right, we're back to our organizational value rankings. Coming in at number 29, it's the Hammer. Wadouche. Travis Hamonic comes in at number 29, 34 years old, Pilsy. And I think that when he came to Ottawa, there was already a sense that they paid too much. He was over the hill. He was a defensive liability. I think we certainly saw that last year. I think we were on the side, and his stats show he had 21 points 2 years ago. He's not a perfect player, but he was adequate. Last year, he was not. And I think injuries and age played a role, but where are you at with Travis Hamonic?
Yeah, I think it's a weird guy to place in our organizational value rankings, Ross, because I feel like some people kind of expected us to give him the Zaitsev treatment where we put Zaitsev dead last because of his contract. He wasn't up to snuff to play, all those kinds of things. The Hamonic contract is really not that big of a deal. People that go crazy over it, I think, just need to settle down a little bit. It's only 1.1 million. Now, would you rather have that cap space? Of course, but this is still
a league minimum is 400,000 less.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a huge deal. But certainly this is a guy that playing all 82 games is past him. I think he's someone that should be a seventh defenseman, plug and play, maybe gets 30 games or something like that if injuries happen. But it is good to have a veteran guy in the room, especially last year. Like, it was Hamonic and Drew and Forsberg were the only players in their 30s once Tarasenko left. So there wasn't a lot of that. And I don't know. I think where we have him is appropriate, Ross, especially when you look at our past rankings. He was 30th and 28th, so he's just right in this range. I'm not sure what this year's going to look like for Travis Hamonic, to be honest.
I'm not sure what it will either. We know that he's got a very decorated resume, if I can even push it that
experienced, I would say. I don't know if I would say decorated.
No, that's fair. 841 games in the National Hockey League, was a top four defenseman for what, a decade it felt like, between the Islanders and Calgary. Yep. But ever since Vancouver, he's taken that step back. But unfortunately, old hockey men think that big right shot defenseman with experience, that means you can play them in your top four. And I know it's early at training camp. We're recording this September 23rd, but he's been paired with Jake Sanderson. Like, that can't happen. There has to be an understanding that Travis Hamonic is the 7th or 8th or 9th or 10th best option on the blue line for the Ottawa Senators. We've got a player coming up on our rankings who has 4 NHL games of experience, but who I would be much more confident playing right D than Travis Hamonic. That's Nicholas Matinpalo. No spoilers, but at the same time, like, there's just other guys who I think should be getting this opportunity. I almost wish he could be a development coach or an assistant coach. Keep him around the room. He seems, by all accounts, like just an awesome dude. But we need it to translate to a better on-ice performance, or else he's going to be hurting the team, not helping it.
Yeah, exactly. And I will admit I was a little surprised the Sens decided to hold on to him, but maybe they tried to move him, or, you know, maybe it's just one of those things out of respect. They're like, all right, we'll let you play out your contract here and then we'll part ways after. And maybe, like you mentioned, there's a job for you outside of hockey.
Well, also interesting here in Winnipeg, a lot of the talk is that they don't have much defensive depth. So could there be something
Bring Hammer home.
eventually? Bring Hammer home. We always love a good homecoming story, but last year's a -10. That has to improve. Played 48 games, 2 goals, 4 assists. Like, I don't know if we have to beat a dead horse much more. We've just always, I will listen to Travis Hamonic talk forever. He is one of the better interviews on the team. He's very well spoken. He's very engaging. But at this point in his career, I just think there's better options for the Ottawa Senators to be putting out there each and every night. That's Travis Hamonic. He comes in at number 29 on our organizational value rankings. And yeah, for people who are like, why is he this high? I mean, he's played 840 NHL games. There's guys who are just behind who might maybe have more upside now moving forward, but they might also never make the NHL. So it'd be kind of, I think, ridiculous. That's just our rationale. You can disagree with it if you want, but I just had trouble putting guys who are minor leaguers in their career ahead of a guy who hasn't played the minors in over a decade. It just felt kind of weird for me to do. So Hamonic's in at number 29. Coming in at number 28, a guy who played a little bit of AHL last year, and he was a dominant player down there, but in the NHL, he knows his role. At number 28, it's Zach McEwen. Last year, he was 34th. He's a 6'2", 200, and we've got him listed at 205 right here. The Senators just posted the rosters for training camp, and they have him at 240. So I'm not sure where we're at with Zach McEwen in terms of being 240 pounds. But he's a right shot, right winger, and he's always going to stand up for his teammates.
Yeah, and despite what analytics will tell you, and you know, a lot of the scouting on players like these guys, Zach McEwen, you do need guys like this around. I think players on the team respect and appreciate having guys like Zach McEwen on the team. Is he going to light it up offensively? No, obviously, but it's not like he's got no skills. Like we saw last year, he had a couple nice goals, like that breakaway goal. He went bar down in Philly up against his old team. Like that was awesome. And he's a good AHL player. Like in Belleville, he didn't spend a lot of time there, just 10 games, but 5 goals, 2 assists, 7 points in 10 games is solid. So if you need to move him up and down, you can do that. Now, again, I think a lot of Sens fans were critical of this contract, a 3-year deal, but at basically league minimum 750, right? So
775. No, it is. You can't pay him less.
Oh, okay. So yeah, at league minimum. Good PEI guy. I think he's someone that is well liked in the locker room as well. So I think 28 is a good spot for him. I figure Ross, he'll probably see a similar amount of games like he did last year. He played 30 games last year. I wouldn't be surprised if it's somewhere in that range, as he's a plug and play 4th line guy as well. But I think as a 4th line guy, he fits in nicely. So I think we got Zach McEwen at a good spot here.
I think that we were a little spoiled growing up, Pillsy, watching the Ottawa Senators with Chris Neil, with Brian McGrath, and they just simply did not lose many fights. Last year, Zach McEwen didn't win a whole lot of fights.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see that kind of change, but I understand that it's the willingness to do it that earns the respect of his teammates. How many fights do you think he got into last year? I got the number right here because I think it'll surprise you how few he got into.
Well, he only played 30 games, so I'm going to say 5.
4.
Okay, yeah, and that's the thing, Ross. When they signed Zach McEwen, I was like, okay, they're getting a new tough guy, a new fighter. So I went to hockeyfights.com, shout out hockeyfights.com, and I looked at all his fights, and you can go back and review my analysis of him. Not a lot of winning fights in his catalog, which is unfortunate. But I'd rather Zach McEwen lose a fight than Brady Tkachuk win a fight and break his hand or something, right? So that's what it comes down to.
That's very well said, Billsy. Yeah, he fought Austin Watson last year.
Nice.
He fought Jake Middleton, former Ottawa 67. He fought Michael Pezzetta with the Montreal Canadiens, and he fought Jonah Gadjevich in that Gong Show game in April against the Florida Panthers. So Zach McEwen, I think for him, it's just simplify, and don't make mistakes, much like Travis Hamonic, and that's their way that they can help the team. All right, coming in at number 27, it's Stanley Cup champion Nick Cousins making his debut on our organizational value rankings, 31 years old. Yeah, he was a healthy scratch for all but one game in the finals, but still got the experience of going on back-to-back deep playoff runs with the Florida Panthers. 5'11", 192 pounds. What will Nick Cousins bring to the Ottawa Senators?
He's going to be a greasy player that opponents are going to hate. He's going to get under the skin of star players. We've seen that before. And Nick Cousins doesn't win many fights, Ross, because he doesn't allow it to get to a point where he's in a fight. And say what you want about it, but it's the way he operates. He pisses people off, and then when they finally can't handle it anymore and their wires are crossed and they go full rage mode, he just turtles, and that's that. And obviously, that's unwritten code of hockey. It's not exactly going to get you a lot of respect points, but the perfect way to describe Nick Cousins, he's a guy you love to have on your team because you'd hate to play against him. But he's still a guy that can put up some offense. Like 15 points for a fourth liner isn't that bad. And you talk about the Sens not having a lot of veteran guys that have playoff experience. Nick Cousins has been in the playoffs the last 6 years in the NHL. And in those playoff runs with the Vegas Golden Knights, 17 games, 4 games with Nashville, 3 games with Nashville, 21 games with Florida the year before on their way to the finals, and then 12 last year. So he clearly is a guy that NHL coaches are like, when it comes playoff time and we're going to play the same team for 7 games, I want a guy that's going to piss off and get star players off their game. And I think Nick Cousins does a good job of that. I kind of have him as a lock, as a fourth line guy, just because I think when the Sens got him, that's the type of player they were looking for. And Belleville, Ontario native, Ross, it's good to have guys like that. He hasn't played in the minors in quite a while either. Like his last time playing in the minors was 2015, 2016. So I think when him and his agent signed a deal with Ottawa, they probably had some sort of agreement that he's going to get to play in the NHL for a good chunk of it.
Last year, he had 7 goals in 69 games. The year before and the one before that, he had 9 goals in each of those seasons. He's been around the league, and he's been in a lot of situations. Pillsy mentioned the playoff games. Well, what speaks to that is being an organization to expect to win. So he's going to bring that mentality to Ottawa. Hopefully, he's the shift disturber evolution of Parker Kelly, and he can really be a guy that impacts the game without necessarily providing as much offense. You're just hoping he doesn't hurt the team with bad penalties, all that sort of thing. It's a very fine line. I don't have to tell him that. He's been doing it for so long. He's already played in 592 NHL games, so he'll hit the 600 milestone this year and hopefully can maybe hit a couple other milestones here if given the right opportunity. But yeah, Nick Cousins is just, you know what you're going to get effort-wise for him. And I think that what you're also getting is an elevation of experience than what you had on that fourth line previously. So Nick Cousins comes in at number 27 on our organizational value rankings. He signed a 1-year contract at $800,000. All right, coming in at number 26, a bit of an interesting placement for him. I'm sure people are wondering, Nicholas Matinpalo at 26, I thought we were on to the NHL guys. Well, this big right shot defenseman at 25 years old, 6'3", 207, was awesome in his first year with Belleville. I thought he should have earned a call-up or 2 more than he got, but he just got the 4 games. But Pillsy, why is Nicholas Matinpalo as high as he is on our rankings?
So you look at a right shot defenseman. You love that first off the bat. Good size, 6'3", 207 pounds. Good age, 25. So it's not like he's a green hockey player. He's got experience. And Ross, I mentioned to you, like, he certainly has a lot of experience for a 25-year-old. He has 205 games of Liga experience to his name, playing a bunch in Finland. And he's the type of guy where in Belleville, he's a top 4 defenseman. And in Ottawa, he can serviceably play a bottom pair for a handful of games. Like you mentioned, he only got the 4 games in Ottawa, but with how last year's season went, it's kind of surprising he didn't get a little bit more. But something that I always think about with Nicholas Matinpalo, Ross, our good buddy David Foote down in Belleville mentioned that he was really hoping that of the veteran defenseman that the Belleville Sens had last year, that Matinpalo was going to be a guy they brought back. They're able to bring him back on a 1-year deal. And he was a plus 15 on that Belleville team that struggled at times to keep the puck out of the net. So I think this is the exact type of guy you want. He provides depth in the NHL if, God forbid, there's injuries, or if you just want to mix up that bottom pair to give Tyler Clevin someone he's familiar with in Martin Powell. They played in Belleville a bunch. And he's also a guy that if you don't see him coming up and playing NHL games, you're comfortable allowing him to play 67 games in Belleville and be a dominant force in that top four. So I like Nicholas Matinpalo. I'm kind of surprised he decided to come back to Ottawa, Ross. I thought maybe he would try to either go back to Liga or try to get another deal somewhere else. But obviously he feels comfortable here, and him and his agent wanted to get things going and get another year here. So I think 26 is a good spot for him.
Yeah, he's gonna make $200,000 in US dollars in his minor salary. He signed a 1-year, $775 contract. He's already got 200 games of legal experience. Maybe he really feels like this challenge is worth waiting out. And clearly, by his spot at 26, we believe that he can be a full-time National Hockey League player. All right, coming in at number 25, it's Adam Gaudette. 27 years old, 6'1", 194. He's in his second stint with the Ottawa Senators. But Pilsy, the numbers are too hard to ignore, leading the American Hockey League last year in goal scoring.
44 goals in 67 games for Adam Gaudette, 71 points total. I mean, everybody knows the offensive talent that Gaudette has, Ross, former Hobey Baker Award winner, but he just hasn't been able to kind of put his full game together. But he had a huge year in the AHL last year, and I think there's probably some familiarity that he likes about coming back to Ottawa. He's already spent some time here, like you mentioned, and this is a guy that could be an absolute game changer in the AHL. Like, he's a top-line player in Belleville, no question about it. And then he's also someone that could get a handful of games in Ottawa and hopefully provide a bit of offense on the bottom four, especially Ross, shootout specialist. We all remember the Adam Gaudette game when he went back to Vancouver, and maybe during the game he didn't have a lot of success, but when it came to the shootout, he wowed with that winner. So this is a guy, much like Nicholas Matinpalo, you want in your organization to really boost your AHL team, but also be serviceable if there is a need or an injury for him to be called up for a handful of games. I don't think Adam Gaudette is going to play a full season in the NHL on the fourth line this year, but if you want to provide offense, 44 goals is pretty good.
Well, at the time in his career, look, I know he was older, but it's Tyler Ennis vibes, where it's like you can play him in your bottom six, but you're not expecting him to be a classic crash and bang bottom six guy. He'll just add a little bit of element of flash and skill, and 220 NHL games, right? Dash 37, sure. You look at the time in Vancouver where he produced a lot of his offense. Last year, just 2 NHL games, no points. Last time before that he played in the National Hockey League was 2 years earlier with Ottawa when he had 4 goals in 50 games. So yep. I don't know what to expect from him. He scored a goal last night in his preseason debut. Yep. And it seems like since he left Ottawa, all he's been doing is scoring goals. So I think that that's why he's 25th on our list. I could see an argument why he should have been at the bottom of this tier, top of the other one. But 44 goals, over a point per game in the AHL, and he's getting paid what? $400K, $450K in AHL salary. The expectation is for him to be a contributing member to this organization, whether it's in Belleville or if he gets a chance to battle for a fourth line role in Ottawa. But kind of funny that Adam Gaudette is back. And of course, that signature moment stands out in many fans' heads. All right, coming in at number 24, it's Jan Jenik. And we stopped here on purpose today because we want to give Jenik his flowers after an outstanding preseason debut. He debuts at number 24 on our organizational value rankings. He's 24 years old, 6'1", 192. And Pilsy, most notably, he needs waivers this year so they could risk losing him for nothing if he doesn't make the team.
Yeah, and that would be disappointing for sure, especially as a 1-for-1 trade with Igor Sokolov, Belleville Senators franchise guy. So if you were just to lose Jenik just from a waiver claim, that would be a tough value transaction for the Ottawa Senators. You don't want to see that, but he played incredible last night. 1 goal, 3 assists. You see him celebrating one of the goals here in this picture from last night. I really like his style, and clearly Steve Staios is the guy that's familiar with him from his time with the Hamilton Bulldogs earlier in his career in the OHL. And to trade him 1-for-1 for Igor Sokolov, I think says a lot about what both Utah and the Ottawa Senators value him at. And I think he's a guy that could definitely play fourth line minutes consistently. Maybe, I don't know about a full season, because the most time he's had in the NHL is 13 games, 2 games with Arizona, 13, 2 games, and 5 games. So he hasn't really been given a lot of leash when he is in the NHL, and mostly it's fourth line minutes. But this is a guy that can provide some offense in that bottom 6. So I like his chances to make the NHL team out of camp.
So do I. I think that what he brings too is a little bit of grit in the bottom 6. It was only 37% on faceoffs in the opening night. So we'll see how that continues. But he's always been able to kind of find a way, right? You look, excuse me, I've got the hiccups right now. Jenik, right? But jokes aside, when we get back to what he was as a prospect, and there's a reason he was very highly regarded when he was in Hamilton. He was a 2 points per game player going into the COVID season. And then out of that, got a taste. He had 2 goals in 2 games in the NHL, Pilsy, in the COVID shortened season. Like, there is some offensive upside. This guy's got some pop to his game. We'll just see if he can do it as a continuous, consistent cycle. This is probably we would like to see consistency tier for the Ottawa Senators, right? Like, that's what's either keeping them too low for what's above, or what they have separated is just the quality of skill that they are just born naturally with, why they're ahead of the guys who we've already done. So we're in this sneaky spot, right? It's just over halfway through our organizational value rankings, where guys like Jenik, they could either boost themselves into the top 20 or fall down below 30, depending on how this upcoming season goes.
Yeah, and I think that's why this tier is so interesting, Ross, especially like this is like the preseason tier. You want to see what these guys can do in the preseason. That's going to determine where they start their year. It's going to have huge impacts on these guys' careers. Like, it's honestly that big of a deal for these types of players. So Jenik, I'm stoked about him. Don't
discount how important it is for these guys too. They know where they're at in their career. And when you get traded like that before you've made the NHL, you're like, wow, like the clock's ticking. So I think that you're going to see a very motivated Jenik here wrapping up our organizational value rankings for today. So Jenik comes in at number 24, Adam Gaudette at 25, Nicholas Matinpalo 26, Nick Cousins 27, Zach McEwen 28, and Travis Hamonic at number 29. But Pilsy, the tier doesn't end there. We'll have more tomorrow.
Yep, organizational value rankings will continue until we get all the way to the number 1 spot.
All right, Pilsy, any final thoughts on today's show? How nice is it chatting about a real hockey game?
Oh, it was great. Yeah, a part of me wanted to do a postcast last night as well, but I'm glad we got to chalk it up for today's podcast. And nothing, I don't care, preseason, rookie tournament, regular season, playoffs. I don't care what the terms are. It's so nice beating the Leafs.
Book it. For today, we say goodbye. We'll be back tomorrow with more from training camp and our organizational value rankings. We got a Sens Central Citizen on Wednesday. And all I'm going to say is that over the next couple weeks, you'll be hearing from some big names on this show. And you'll also be hearing from us. That's Brandon Piller. I'm Ross Levitan. We'll chat tomorrow. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast. Your team every day.